to everyone, whether you're here with us today or joining us from home via YouTube. A few announcements before the service begins. So first of all, I believe that there are children's activities available downstairs in the vestry with Kiana. Sorry about that. Okay, secondly, on March 12th, there will be Pie Sunday. That means bring any kind of pie, sweet or savory, for us, and we will eat them together. Also, the socks and underwear drive, which is for Pathways for Children, contact Kate Ruzecki or Holly Tangway. There is a harpsichord concert here on Sunday, March 19th at 3:30, which is presented by the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, and contact Charles Nazarian. The church has this book group, wonderful book group, and it will next meet on Wednesday, March 22nd at 10:30, and the book is The Ministry for the Future, which is about the climate. Okay, is this better? Okay. Maybe I put it out myself. Okay, and there is always an opportunity to donate flowers. There are no flowers today, but we hope for the future. I want to introduce maybe I have to hold this. Okay, I want to introduce Gail Seavey, who most people know. She's a member of the church, and she is a retired UU parish minister. She's a graduate of Harvard Divinity School. She was ordained at This is impossible. She served for 30 years, various congregations in California, Minnesota, Salem, Massachusetts, and Tennessee. And we're always happy to have okay. This is impossible.
Or use that one. feel like I should be jumping up and down after that. I want to welcome everyone to the Gloucester Unitarian Universalist Church. And those of you on YouTube, welcome too. Matter of fact, those of you on YouTube, you might want to get a chalice or a candle that you can light when we all light the candle together. And we are here in Gloucester on the ancestral and traditional ground of the Pawtucket and other indigenous groups. They are here still. We are learning, those of us from settler culture, the difference from them between having a relationship with this land beneath our feet and owning it as property. And so I believe we will continue our worship. Our call to worship is a traditional covenant said by Universalist churches for pretty much all of the 20th century, every Sunday. Love. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now, I'd like to introduce our opening hymn. I had the pleasure when the turquoise hymnal was introduced at the UU General Assembly to hear the writer Libby Roderick tell why she wrote it. She wrote it for her partner, who was struggling with in recovery from alcohol, who had been severely rejected by her family for being lesbian and harassed in the streets for it. And she wrote this song to soothe her beloved. Oh, and it's number 1053. I'm sorry, 1053. unison affirmation. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. And now, Peggy is going to light our peace candle, which we've been doing for a year. Friday was the anniversary of the Russia attack on Ukraine. On Friday, throughout Ukraine, mothers and fathers and sons and wives sat in military graveyards throughout the country, remembering and lighting candles of memory to all those that have died in the last year. And we join them by lighting this candle today. So today I want to tell you a story about an avatar, and I'm not going to tell you a story about an avatar, which is like a cartoon on your social media, if you have such a thing. And it's not the imaginary friend some people have. They call an avatar on a, what's it called, chat bot. It's like a robot chat friend. This is a traditional avatar. In Hinduism, the Hindu god Vishnu is considered the savior god. He's like a superhero. And anytime there's trouble on earth, he takes a different form, depending on what the trouble is, and he comes down to earth, and that's an avatar. And there's 10 traditional avatars in their storytelling. One of them is the future. The rest of them have been spread out over the last hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. So, since he's only come down 9 times in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, he gets to be on vacation most of the time. And what he likes to do is he goes, hangs out in the cosmic ocean with his 2 best friends, Sesha, who is the lord of all the cosmic snakes, and Lakshmi, who is his girlfriend, his wife, whatever, his consort. They call her different things. Anyway, they're partners. They're a team. And what Sesha likes to curl up on top of the ocean. And he makes kind of a raft, and he likes to just float there. And Vishnu likes to stretch out on the raft. And quite honestly, he sleeps a lot. And Lakshmi likes to sit on the edge at his feet, and she likes to look around at all the worlds and see what's going on. Sometimes it's boring, and she falls asleep too. It's like watching too much TV, but sometimes she pokes, Vishnu, wake up. You got to see this. And that's what she did today. Wake up. You remember, what? Look down there on Earth. Do you remember that demon that you killed that was trying to kill the Earth? You know, the one that you went down as a wild boar and you had to save the Earth and you had to kill him? Yeah, what about him? I mean, he's dead. Well, it's his brother. Oh, his brother. Yeah, his brother. I remember him. He was a worse demon. He was so mad I killed his brother that he started killing all the good people in the world. Yeah, and then you remember, Brahma didn't want you to deal with it. He said, nope, I'm going to take care of this. And he made a deal with that demon. The demon said, I'll stop killing everybody if you make it so I can live forever. Brahma couldn't even do that. He said, I can't do it. Yeah, he's not as all-powerful as he thinks. But he did make a suggestion, which the demon accepted. He said, how about if you can't die inside or outside, in the day or the night, and you can't be killed by a weapon, a person, an animal, or a god? And the demon said, I'll take it. Yeah, but it didn't turn out that great, did it? Because he became one of the greatest tyrants of all kind. He just has the whole world under his thumb, and he's terrible. And there's nothing we could do about it. Nothing. But then Lakshmi said, you know, we've got to do something now. Well, why? What's different? Well, he is starting to kill his own children. And I can't stand it. I can't watch him do it. Vishnu said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, they're all half human, and he wants them to be as bad as he is. He wants them to kill and lie and cause all kind of havoc, and they don't want to do it. And he always punishes them because they're too nice. And then one of them he just gave up on. He wouldn't go start a war, and he really was depending upon him to do that, and he just didn't go. And so he made a big fire, and he threw him in. He was going to kill him. And all his brothers and sisters rescued him, and now he wants to kill all of them. Okay, you're right. This is getting out of hand. We can figure something out. And before the day is over, they have a plan. The next thing you know, there is a totally new creature walking the earth. It's big, has a big lion's head. It has kind of human form, and it has the heart of a god. It's a Narasimha. Narasimha, never seen before. And he goes to the demon's house. And like they could see, it has a veranda, which is a porch, right? It's not inside or out. And he hides behind a pillar, and he waits. And out comes the demon, ready to pounce on the children when they come home. And the children are coming home. You can see them in the distance. But Narasimha is not looking at them. He's looking at the sun. And he watches as the sun starts going down. And when it's exactly halfway above the horizon and halfway below, neither day or night, he pounces and he rips that demon to shreds, saving those children for at least one lifetime. Vishnu goes back, stretches out to sleep until he's needed here on earth again. And so ends my story. And I'm sure I know what happens next. Tell me, what happens next? Well, great. Go for it. Thank you.
Shore
Thank you. Well, we want to act, every one of us, with compassion, commitment, generosity to those we care for and love. And it takes practice, doesn't it? It's a practice. And so I would like us to practice that for a few minutes in our prayer. And I'm just drawing on Tashlik, the Buddhist practice, in which you breathe in the oxygen and transform it inside your lungs, and you breathe out carbon dioxide. You're a transformer, but we're going to transform our human vulnerabilities to love. And I will lead it for a few minutes. Then you just take it wherever you want during silence and the music that follows. So why don't we start by just practicing breathing in and paying attention to our breath in and our breath out. Just take a few intentional breaths. I invite you to breathe in fear. Breathe out reassurance. Breathe in anger. Breathe out support. Breathe in thoughtlessness. Breathe out understanding. Breathe in doubt. Breathe out acceptance. Breathe in a troubled heart. Breathe out deep listening. Breathe in loneliness. Breathe out connecting attention.
First reading is Love Defined from The Road Less Traveled. Sorry about this. Is this better? Okay. By Scott Peck, who is a white psychiatrist. He writes, I define love thus: the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. By use of the word will, I have attempted to transcend the distinction between desire and action. Desire is not necessarily translated into action. Will is desire of sufficient intensity that it is translated into action. The difference between the two is equal to the difference between saying, I would like to go swimming tonight, and I will go swimming tonight. Everyone in our culture desires to some extent to be loving, yet many are not in fact loving. I therefore conclude that the desire to love is not itself love. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. No matter how much we may think we are loving, if we are in fact not loving, it is because we have chosen not to love. Therefore, do not love, despite our good intentions. On the other hand, whenever we do actually exert ourselves in the cause of spiritual growth, it is because we have chosen to do so. The choice of love has been made. As I indicated, patients who come to psychotherapy are invariably found to be more or less confused about the nature of love. This is because, in the face of the mystery of love, misconceptions about it abound.
This congregation, like all Unitarian Universalist congregations, is entirely self-supporting. It is here and has staff and like a janitor and someone downstairs and someone filming upstairs because music, because of your ongoing generosity and love for this community. So at this time, our offering will be received.
The second reading is from All About Love, New Visions, by Bell Hooks, a black feminist author and activist professor who wrote because observed that U.S. becoming a more polarized and less loving nation. The book, the first of a love trilogy, the second to focus on black love, has been on the nonfiction bestseller list for 36 weeks since she died in 2021. She writes, "When we understand love as the will to nurture our own and another's spiritual growth, it becomes clear that we cannot claim to love if we are hurtful and abusive. Love and abuse cannot coexist. Abuse and neglect are, by definition, the opposite of nurturance and care."
Thank you, Peggy. Okay. I spent 30 years being considered an after pastor. They didn't call it that when I started, but an after pastor is someone who comes in a congregation after there has been ministerial misconduct, different boundary violations, most often sexual abuse. And what I found as people really committed to doing healing work from the trauma, both as individuals and as an institution, that they brought their whole lives with them. I'm sure you all bring your whole lives with you to church as well. And that they brought their own traumas with them, since we were being very open about dealing with trauma. And I heard so many stories about so many different kinds of trauma, most of it family violence, quite honestly, but a lot of it is state violence, all the terrible things that happen because of homophobia and sexism and racism, that I started to say that we lived in the United States of trauma. We live in the United States of trauma. And one of the things that I noticed was that it wasn't just people going to psychotherapy that were confused about love. The more trauma in their lives, which was way more common than I'd ever imagined, the more people were confused about love. And indeed, many of the people I work with didn't trust love at all. They had been abused too much in the name of love. This is for your own good, for instance. And they were cynical, deeply, deeply cynical. Now, I understood this because I once was very cynical myself. On a good day, I was just confused about love. I was very cynical. And I think that's why I went to a Universalist church in the first place. Because it was the only place that I knew in town that was talking about love. And I wanted to figure it out. They talked about all kinds of love. They talked about Hindu bhakti yoga, devotion. They talked about Buddhist compassion. They talked about humanist unconditional love, and they told a lot of great Universalist stories about love. Hosea Ballou, who was the great early New England Universalist theologian, the only one that actually wrote theology at that time, 1805, he was also a great preacher. And people would be out there who, like him, had all grown up Puritans. And they had all been taught that God was love, but that they were born in original sin, which means God was still punishing them from something that happened before the beginning of time, and they would probably go to hell. There was a lot of anxiety about whether I'm going to hell or not in those days, and that's pretty confusing. So Hosea Ballou would tell this story. He said, okay, you're a father, and you love your son more than life itself, but he has gone bad. He started drinking, And then you punished him, but he still went out drinking. And then he started gambling, and you punished him, but he still went out gambling. And then you heard rumors that he had been starting fights, and you got worried he was going to hurt somebody because punishing him didn't help. So you built a big bonfire in front of your house one night. He came home drunk, and you threw him in. And he died. And Hosea Ballew's audience, his congregation would go, no loving father would do that. And he said, well, if you wouldn't do that, and you're just a mere human being, why would God, who loves his children, do that to his children? He was not confused about love. He knew what Bell Hooks taught, who was really much a universalist in the black church. Abuse and love don't go together. Somebody can care for you, they can keep a roof over your head, they can be responsible for you, but if they abuse you, they don't love you. Now, the people who heard those stories were relieved because most of them loved their children. And a lot of children died in the 1800s, and they did not believe those children were going to go to hell. Universalism by the mid-1800s became the third largest religion in America because people did not believe their children would be punished. They believed their children were born innocent. And the women started writing in their women's magazines a lot about how do you bring up children to be good. The reason they did this was because all the child-rearing manuals in early America were written by people who believed the children were born in original sin. The very first child-raising manual was published in the late 1600s in Ipswich, Massachusetts. And it says, and I quote, "You have to beat the devil, the hell out of a child by the time they're 2. Because if you wait longer than that, they will become willful and disobedient, and they will go to hell." So there was a rebellion. Women writing in all these women's magazines about how do we bring up children to be good, responsible, loving adults, knowing that we don't have to, had the hell beat out of us. How do we bring them up differently? You know, they experimented with that. Oh, now most of those things nobody reads anymore, which is just as well, because they really don't know what they're doing. But we all might have read one that was one of the most popular books written by the Unitarian Louisa May Alcott. Not just Little Women, but all of those books. Now, I wasn't beaten, but I was brought up that if you showed any will and you were not 100% obedient, you were bad. And so I read all those, 8 Cousins and Joe's Boys and all those books because Little Women, they were talking about children being brought up, making mistakes, growing in their understanding of what was good in a loving, supportive way. For me, that was revolution. I think that's why I knew to go to a Universalist church in the first place. So Bell Hooks is worried about America still hasn't got their act together around love. And I think a lot of us feel that. People started to understand better how children could be raised to be loving during World War II, quite honestly. 2 psychotherapists, they were called psychoanalysts then, they asked the question, and these were people in Germany and Switzerland, Poland. They asked the question, not just why was Hitler such a tyrant, although they did do a kind of psychoanalysis of his history, but also why was the common rank and file person in Germany supportive of that? Why did they go along with it, even to the point of killing millions of their neighbors, And so Wilhelm Reich wrote a book on exploring the psychology of tyranny, and his conclusion, and he worked in a free clinic in Germany for a long time, so he had talked to a lot of just rank and file people, that they were beaten so badly as children that they automatically responded to authority. It was the only safe thing to do. And it wasn't rational, because this all happened before they were fully developed. The person who understood a little more deeply about that this happened while they were babies was Alice Miller, who was a psychoanalyst from Switzerland and Poland. And she, again, analyzed how Nazism took her straight to how the children were raised. And she realized she raised her own children with that same harsh, controlling way. And she had to face that she had to change how she did that. She called it poisonous pedagogy. And she showed quotes very much like beat the hell out of the child by the time they're 2, but without the hell, without it became rationalized. It became, this is the way a culture brings up good children. And her book sold like crazy in the United States of America, so she understood that people all over the world with different cultures and different beliefs had learned to bring up their children this way. I know that I needed to read bell hooks for her to say, abuse is not love. I needed to have it put that clearly, because it's hard for me to admit that my poor parents didn't know how to love. Very hard to admit that, but of course that's how they were taught. I have nothing against them for that. They did the best they could, right? But since then, I have learned how to practice love. Now, love did not come to me naturally. I'll tell you, I was not allowed to love, because that was strong feeling, and that might make you willful, so that was not allowed. So I do wonder sometimes, am I exaggerating about the United States of love? Am I projecting my own, trying to learn what it really means to extend and nurture other people and myself? When he talks about spiritual, he just means the whole self, mind, body, spirit, the whole self. And so one of the persons that I became quite a student of was Bessel van der Kolk, who in 2016, a therapist, wrote a book that has been on the bestseller list. I mean, this is so weird to me. For 290 weeks on the nonfiction here in Boston bestseller list is called, I brought the book because I can never remember anything, but it's kind of like a Bible. The body keeps the score. Brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. We use this in our church. Our church in Nashville, we changed the UU universe. We worked together. We worked on this trauma in ourselves, in our institution. We changed the institution so it was healthy, and then we changed the UUA. People were pissed at us for a long time, but they learned how to deal with it. They changed all of their ethical guidelines for ministers, and they started to treat victims like pastorally instead of as a threat to the institution. And you see that in all kinds of institutions. It's like somebody's been hurt by an institution, right? So he was at the Boston Book Fair this fall. I went, oh my gosh, I have no idea what he's been doing the last 5 years, and he's the main speaker for nonfiction. So I went and met some people that I'd done this work with, actually, which was great to reconnect to them. And it was in a church 4 times bigger than this on Copley Square, and it was packed. It was packed, and there wasn't me and Bessel were the only gray hairs in the place. It was packed with young people who all seemed to be doing this work and know everything that he'd ever done. And what they all wanted to know, he said a lot, he really caught people up on the research and what people were doing in trauma, which has changed. I mean, trauma wasn't even considered a diagnosis, post-traumatic stress trauma. We always knew there's trauma. But being wounded from those traumas, post-traumatic stress syndrome, wasn't even considered diagnosis. In 1980, it wasn't until 2013 that they realized it was something that happened from the outside, not a mental illness. That it was a wounding. It was you treated it by healing wounds. And treatments have been thing. But as they've worked with it, what he explained was that they now believe there's 2 kinds of trauma with different different things work to help heal it. One is the kind of trauma that everybody thinks of, like you're at war, or you've been raped, or you've been beat up once or twice, or you were in a car accident and you survived, but you thought you were going to die, or a one-time thing, kind of I call it situational trauma. They just call it trauma. But there's another kind that didn't seem to heal with the same treatments. And first they called it complex trauma, now they call it developmental trauma. But what they're getting right at is developmental trauma, children who have been abused in ways that sometimes feel like that's just the way you bring up a child, over long periods of time that affected their development. And they have to kind of rewire. And it takes different treatments, okay? Now, this is the part that got everybody riled up in the place. The American Psychiatric Society has this big book. It's called the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And it was a big deal, for instance, when they said that being gay or lesbian isn't a mental illness in this DSM. I mean, people really look at this DSM. It shows what's happening in the thought of all psychiatry. And hundreds of therapists in America put together 40,000 detailed case histories to show that there was this developmental trauma, because they wanted it added to the DSM. They wanted 2 kinds of trauma, the situational post-traumatic stress and the developmental post-traumatic stress. And it was refused. They would not add it. Well, there was like lines of people coming up to the microphone. Why? And he finally says, this is why. It's political. What do you mean it's political? He finally said, okay, every institution in this country does not take care of its children. Churches, schools, social services, medical, mental health. He didn't say prisons. He did say poverty, how we deal with poverty. And there are so many children suffering. And adults suffering from how they grew up. And it is so common that it's political. We have to change all our institutions. I said, yeah, to myself. It is the United States of trauma. Now, that sounds like it could be depressing, but it really isn't, because some of you are committed to the Universalist and Unitarian Church, which puts love at the center. Because what he's talking about is justice, and bell hooks is saying justice and love. If there's no justice, there's no love, right? And Cornel West, a great black theologian, says Justice is just love in public. So we actually know how to change the United States. We know. I know we know because I have seen one, three, two. One congregation failed, but two of the congregations, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, but two of the congregations changed and they became healthy institutions. And the UUA is becoming, and the UUMA are becoming healthy institutions. They're small, but they give me hope because I have seen institutions change through the power of practicing love. Practice it every day. Now, there's only three simple, really, it's very simple. It sounds so scary. You start with practicing love. The thing that changes the most is paying attention. Classic spiritual practice in every religion. Pay attention. You pay attention to the beloved. I don't care if it's another person or your cat or the earth beneath your feet. Pay attention. Spend time with it. Get to know it. Know what it needs. It might be you. Know what you need to grow in love. Then you know what to do. The most common practice in our churches was just learning deep listening. Every year we taught deep listening for 15 years. By the end of 15 years, almost every people in that congregation, there was enough people that knew how to really be and listen to each other, and love just grew. It just grew. Okay. So, I know that we practice love, and we can keep doing it, and we are committed to helping each other do that. And I just want to give you a little nice, hopeful reading. It's very ancient. We're going to end by reading together as kind of a prayer, 601. It's in your gray hymnal, and it's an ancient prayer, Taoist prayer from China. If we read that together in unison, let me get it so I can. Okay. Are you ready? People got it? Right. When all the people of the world love, then the strong will not overpower the weak. The many will not oppress the few. The wealthy will not mock the poor. The honored will not disdain the humble. The cunning will not deceive the simple. May it be so. And we probably sing now, right? Yeah, we're going to sing. Love will guide us. And it's, no, is that it? What we're going to sing? 131. Okay. My benediction is a charge. Yeah, you can sit down. Go ahead, because there's more. You have more. My benediction is a charge. I know you have the desire to love, and I know you really have the will to love. You will love. So my charge is this week, intentionally do one thing to extend yourself for the purpose of nurturing your own or another's mind, body, soul, spiritual growth. May it be so. And now we're going to extinguish the chalice. And I would love everybody to join in on this unison extinguishing, which is in your order of service. I know a lot of you know it by heart, though. I've seen you. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.